Portugal were one toenail away from disaster.
From Colombia, certainly quality, and they would have won this game. I'm surprised they didn't. I don't like the toenail offside at all.
Literally. If Davinson Sanchez's foot had been a fraction smaller, Portugal would have walked into the knockout rounds, carrying a defeat instead of a draw.
Is it Davinson Sanchez?
Yeah.
If Davinson Sanchez were a size 8 instead of a size 10, it would have been a 1-0 victory for Colombia.
VAR saved them.
This much offsides because the guy's toe, but the rest of his body's there, or his shoulder is slightly offsides. This needs to be changed in the game. It's killing it.
But that's not the scary part. The scary part is that Colombia completely exposed the blueprint for beating Portugal. And now that blueprint belongs to Croatia, which means this isn't just another round of 32 match. This game could completely change the balance of the entire FIFA World Cup. 5 goals against Uzbekistan papered over a lot. That scoreline felt like confirmation. Portugal arriving, Portugal clicking, Portugal becoming the tournament threat everyone predicted.
But Portugal responded in a very good way, in a very positive way, and in a very great fashion. 5-0 against Uzbekistan.
After DR Congo held them,
I think Congo deserve all the credit, to be honest. I thought they defended to a man outstanding. I think they kept a higher line than we've seen in the World Cup games so far, because they noticed that Portugal weren't really wanting to threaten him behind, and I think
then Colombia outplayed them.
But I'm talking about if you actually watched the game, which we all did, this was a statement, and it could have been a bigger statement is what I'm saying, that Colombia bossed Portugal.
And suddenly, those 5 goals looked less like a statement and more like a distraction from 2 performances that should make every Portuguese supporter slightly uneasy. Against Colombia, Portugal recorded 0.7 expected goals. Colombia produced more than double that, according to data tracked by SofaScore and FOTMob. Colombia attempted nearly twice as many shots, created the clearer opportunities, and controlled large stretches of the game physically and tactically.
Colombia has 20 shots, and maybe 10, 15 of them came from outside the box. They had a lot of room to shoot from outside the box consistently because Luis Diaz was pushing a midfielder out to the side.
Portugal didn't lose, but they didn't really compete either. And there's a difference between surviving a match and being in one.
There was one team trying to win the game and the other team just kind of hanging on and hoping to get a counterattack. And Colombia, the team that did not need to win this match to finish first in the group, they were the ones trying to win the game. Whereas Portugal were just kind of absorbing pressure and hopefully...
The midfield numbers make it even stranger. Vitinha completed virtually every pass he attempted against Colombia, something close to 54 from 54 at one point. That's an extraordinary statistic for a midfielder operating under real pressure. But here's the problem with pass completion. It doesn't score goals. It doesn't break defensive lines. It doesn't make a centre-back take a step backward out of fear. Colombia simply stepped onto Vitinha, denied him space in the final third, and the entire Portuguese attack slowed to a crawl.
But I would credit Colombia by stepping onto Vitinha and not allowing him to have the tempo and dictate the game normally as he liked.
All that clean passing produced almost nothing dangerous. Bruno Fernandes is the other part of this puzzle.
Bruno Fernandes, he needs to hit the showers. He needs to get on the bus because he was a ghost.
The Bruno who plays
going
for
forward, their lack of dynamic movement going forward. I was expecting more for Portugal, but maybe this is who they are.
Ronaldo's situation is slightly different, and honestly a little unfair to reduce to simple criticism.
I think he stands out because the name and how legendary he is, but I think when you look at his performance, he tried, he ran around. Me and Stevie were watching him and think...
He's working hard, pressing, dropping deeper than you'd expect a 41-year-old to, trying to drag defenders out of position. The problem isn't effort, the problem is service.
Offensively, there's a problem. And the problem is not just Cristiano Ronaldo. It's the service from Portugal. And it's the lack of creativity.
If the ball isn't arriving in dangerous areas, he's a presence rather than a threat.
Ronaldo was just another player today. He wasn't the superstar.
Right.
Apparently one of the best players that have ever kicked the ball. He just, tonight, was another player.
But he wasn't a superstar, but he wasn't rubbish.
No.
It was.
Well, he was just an ordinary footballer tonight.
Which pretty much the Portuguese team were overall today.
And against Colombia, the box delivery was limited enough that he barely registered on the chance creation side of things. Now, Portugal fans will remind you this isn't unprecedented. At Euro 2016, Portugal drew their opening game, scraped through the group stage without ever convincing anyone, and then won the whole tournament. That team also lived on the margins for long stretches, but that tournament's opponents were nothing like what's waiting now. The team standing between Portugal and the round of 16 has built its entire identity around making organized, patient, possession-heavy opponents look exactly as unconvincing as Portugal looked against Colombia. Croatia's numbers against Ghana almost don't make any sense. They generated 0.42 expected goals. At that XG total, most models would give you roughly a 30% chance of scoring, even once. Croatia scored twice, won the match, and did it while ceding large stretches of possession and territory to a Ghanaian side that actually created the better opportunities across the 90 minutes. On paper, Ghana should have won that game. The underlying data says Ghana should have won that game. Croatia simply didn't care. This version of Croatia doesn't operate on volume. They don't need 15 chances. They don't need dominance. What they need is patience, organization, and that one moment when the opponent's concentration dips for just long enough. Everything about Zlatko Dalic's setup this tournament screams efficiency over aesthetics, survival over spectacle. And here's what makes that genuinely frightening for Portugal specifically. Croatia are comfortable giving possession away. They want opponents to have the ball. They want long spells of slow build-up because that's when defensive blocks get settled, distances between lines get managed, and the game eventually arrives at the moment Croatia have been waiting for. One slightly risky pass going astray, 1 second ball dropping to a Croatian midfielder in space, one counter-attack with numbers forward before Portugal's shape recovers. This isn't the free-flowing 2018 Croatia that reached the World Cup final through breathtaking attacking football, dismantling Argentina and England in stretches of the tournament through sheer creative quality. That team played on front foot. This team plays a completely different game, colder, more patient, more willing to absorb suffering.
Overall, I think Croatia are probably doing as well as they possibly can at the moment.
And arguably more dangerous inside a single knockout match because of it. Modric at 40 is the embodiment of that shift. He doesn't cover the ground he once did. Nobody reasonable expects him to. But what he does instead is control the emotional temperature of every match he plays in.
In the middle of the park with the way that he can spray the ball, his movement, checking off players, finding passing lanes, just how tricky and clever he is.
Against Ghana, whenever the game threatened to get physical and chaotic, whenever Ghana's athleticism started creating real problems, Croatia found Modric. He'd receive the ball in a pocket of space, play something simple, and suddenly the game was back under control. Not through pace, not through pressing, through understanding. That's what 40 years of football intelligence looks like operating in real time. And Vitinha is about to run directly into it. Vitinha's strength is circulation. He finds angles nobody else sees, keeps the ball moving at a tempo that suffocates pressing teams and makes Portugal breathe. But Croatia aren't a pressing team. They'll let him circulate. They'll let him complete pass after pass in front of their defensive block, and they'll wait, because Modric has spent 2 decades learning exactly when circulation becomes desperation. He knows the moment a midfielder stops passing with purpose and starts passing out of anxiety. That's when Croatia move. So, the midfield duel isn't just tactical, it's psychological. Vitinha needs to force the game forward. Modric needs to slow it down and let Portugal's own patience work against them. Whichever of those two things happens first probably decides the match, which is why the opening goal matters more than in almost any knockout fixture you'll watch this tournament. Portugal score first, Croatia's entire tactical blueprint gets ripped up. Suddenly, they have to attack. Defensive lines push higher. Space opens behind them. Leao's pace, João Neves driving forward. Bruno Fernandes, finally, in a game that demands instinct over control. That's a Portugal that looks genuinely dangerous. The Portugal that tore through Uzbekistan in the first half, fast transitions, direct build-ups, runners arriving into the box box before the defense could set, might finally come back when there's no cautious group stage calculation, forcing them to sit back and circulate. But Croatia score first, everything flips. Portugal must chase. Modric manages the tempo from deep, slowing the game down to exactly the rhythm Croatia want. Every Portuguese attack becomes slightly more rushed, slightly less structured, and Croatia's whole experience in knockout football, built across Qatar, Russia, and every deep tournament run this generation has produced, tells them exactly what to do with a lead and a team chasing it. They've been here before. Spain, Brazil, England, Belgium. None of these badges protected anyone once the whistle blew, and Croatia were ahead with 30 minutes left. Portugal's ceiling is undeniably higher.
And it's the same as Portugal. I don't think we've seen a good Portugal.
On their very best day, this squad has the quality to hurt anyone still standing in this tournament. Vitinha, Bruno, Leao, João Neves, Nuno Mendes, Ronaldo. That's a starting 11 most nations would take without hesitation.
Look at Vitinha, you look at Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, you look at the youthful upstart in João Neves. This team has tons of talent.
But Croatia have never needed to match an opponent's ceiling. They've only ever needed to stay close long enough for the pressure to shift and the mistakes to start arriving. And that's the real threat. Not Croatia's attack, not their squad depth. It's time. The longer this match stays level, the more Portugal's individual quality starts feeling like individual burden. Decision-making tightens. Passes become shorter. Shots from outside the box replace the combination play nobody's quite unlocking. Croatia recognize those symptoms instantly. They've induced them before. Portugal know this too. They've watched the same knockout upsets this Croatian generation produced. They know patience is Croatia's weapon. The question is whether knowing it is enough to stop it. Control versus patience. Possession versus efficiency. Individual brilliance versus collective discipline. By the time the final whistle blows in Toronto, one genuine World Cup contender will already be heading home. If you want to see more breakdowns like this one, tactics, data, the stories inside the match, subscribe to the channel and drop your prediction in the comments. Who goes through, Portugal or Croatia?